Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SourceForge podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I am your host, Bo Hamilton, senior editor and multimedia producer here at SourceForge, the world's most visited software comparison site where B2B software buyers compare and find business software solutions. Today, we're joined by Nikolaos Nikou, the founder and CEO of Classter, a company started back in 2015 in Greece with a pretty bold idea: make life a whole lot easier for schools by bringing all their admin tools into one smart, connected platform. With the help of Classter, schools can manage everything from admissions and grading to communication and online learning, all in one central place. The company started as a small team, as they often do, but their vision has helped grow into a global ad tech solution used by over 500 institutions in over 25 countries. We'll talk to Nikolaos about how the company got off the ground, how it's changing the way schools operate, and what they're working on next to keep pushing education forward. So let's get right into it. Nikolaos, welcome to the podcast. Glad you could join us.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. So help me understand what sparked the idea for Classter. What was the goal when you started the company back in 2015?
Yeah. Actually, the idea for Classter was born in 2014. Back then, I had a visit to BET educational trade show in London. And this is a very sound technology event for education. And what struck me a lot back then was that for an average school to implement an end-to-end digital solution that allows them to digitalize fully their operations, they had to purchase maybe a dozen different software platforms and then had to find a way to integrate all those platforms under one system. And I realized that that is a very demanding job, requires a lot of IT resources and a high budget. And my opinion and my feeling back then, and still is, was that that's almost a very difficult task for any school or any university to do. So the motivation to start Classter was very simple. I want to provide a fully cloud-based SaaS platform that offers an end-to-end solution for any type of educational institution or academic institution, regardless of the size of the institution or the educational level or geography. My experience was from ERP, CRM world, where you have an ERP that can be used in any type of organization, any type of company. And then I was also amazed by the fact that in education, we had software only for higher education, only for K-12 schools, or software only for normal schools, different software for American schools, different software for English schools, and so on. So the idea was to create an end-to-end solution that will enable education institutions to easily implement the digitalization priorities and focus to what matters most for them, which is delivering education, not spending time on organizing processes and operations.
Yeah, so the industry is pretty fragmented, and I think it's gotten a lot better. But it's, I think, with your solution, it's starting to get more kind of consolidated in the right place. There's more central location for a lot of these tools and features. I'm curious, like, what has changed over time since when you were founded? I know obviously you've been in business for about a solid decade now. You mentioned you were concerned with, I imagine you're migrating clients to the cloud. Now we're entering this sort of AI era. Have you started shifting focus to AI and automation, or are you still kind of predominantly focused on migrating clients to the cloud?
First of all, let me tell you that we think that if you don't have a rigid digital framework underneath, building on AI is very difficult, and usually it is doomed to fail. So our idea is that you need to have very well organized, digitalized processes, and then you can go and start exploiting AI capabilities. So we work a lot on providing AI tools within the platform and using the AI tools as a development software house. So we want to use AI, first of all, for helping our customers, and mainly the IT admins and the people who use Classter to configure and utilize Classter as better as possible, because the software is very big and complex nowadays with a lot of processes and features. And the AI comes to there as an excellent tool to help the whole team and our customers to exploit the power of Classter. At the same time, we have started some experimentation, and we have invested some R&D effort to start adding AI tools in front of teachers and students in order to be able to basically change the way they interact. So the one idea is to provide, which we are working now on, is to provide teacher agents. So it's basically replicas of your teacher, but a student can communicate and do questions and ask questions at any time during the day without the need really to talk to the teacher. So we see this as a digital extension of the physical teacher 24 hours a day. So this is one, maybe the flagship R&D project we run right now. And we believe that we'll have some real life results and some new offerings to our customers within the near future.
Nice. Okay, that's exciting. Now, have you noticed any sort of pushback from clients in regard to this topic? I know AI in the education space is maybe a little more contentious than in other industries. What's kind of been the discussion around it?
Traditionally, educational sector is a very conservative sector. I mean, schools are always very slow in adapting new technologies. And I usually, when I discuss about the future of technology in education, I give the paradigm of a classroom. In the vast majority of schools or universities, if you see a classroom now and you compare it to the classroom in 1970s, the difference is very, very minor. I mean, maybe you see some laptops, maybe you see electronic whiteboard or tablets, but in reality, the way the lesson is done is very, very similar in the vast majority of educational institutions. So we see there is a lot of willingness to exploit how AI can be used in education effectively. But at the same time, we see our customers being very conservative in moving towards this direction because they are influenced by physical constraints like the willingness of teachers to do or the capability of teachers to using AI. At the same time, there is a pressure, very high pressure from students. They use AI on a daily basis. They are used now to consuming content in a way that makes schools or educational systems kind of irrelevant. And that creates a huge pressure to the schools to change. So we believe that we have a traditional system on one side, and we have a huge pressure, external pressure on the other side for the system to change. So we see back and forths. We see people who try to do different things, but they are not always ready. What we believe is the major problem is that a lot of educational institutions are not well digitalized anyway. So they haven't digitalized all the operations. And now they try to skip this phase and go to the next phase, which is to personalize the service, use AI, do the next mile. But if you don't have the foundation ready, then the next step is always more difficult. And there is exactly where Classter position itself as a software that allows you to create a foundation, to create one system that basically has all the information about your educational environment, that opens your school ecosystem, improves communication, improves analytics, improves operations, creates operation processes, digital processes, and then you can start using AI to do the next mile. So I believe we are well positioned to help school to do the next step. We do this with slow steps, the way the industry does it. We are not one of those guys who they speak only about AI, because we fully realize that everybody wants to do AI, but at the same time, they have so many daily problems to solve. And we need to make sure that we solve those daily and common problems before we do the next step. And we believe that the difference in the next 2 to 3 years is going to be huge in all aspects. And that will drive all customers to feel the need to go more on that road of AI and full digitalization of all processes and all operations.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got to kind of proceed cautiously and kind of get the foundation, the infrastructure in place, like migrating clients to the cloud, getting all the modules and interface and dashboard, everything correct before you start incorporating some of these AI automated technologies. I feel like I could talk about that topic in particular for hours on end, but I'm curious, like you mentioned also earlier, the fragmented kind of industry and market with all these different software providers trying to kind of compete for the same market. I'm curious, like, who has been using Classter the most? Is it K through 12 schools? Is it higher education institutions? Is it, I think of vocational and training centers? Because I imagine Classter works well across all these different types of institutions, but I'm just curious if there's like one specific group that you originally had in mind when building the platform.
Yeah, right now we see that the sector that has higher demand for our services is let's say the post-secondary education. And why? Because we believe this is a sector that has felt the impact of the technology shift. In the minds of many young people, university is kind of irrelevant nowadays. So they need to provide new ways of attracting students and keeping themselves relevant. So they do huge investment on the digitalization. They want to provide the full experience to their students. And there is where Classter comes to the picture, because we are the orchestrator, let's say, among different solutions and the central database where all the data rely and enables this magic of doing all the operations digital. So we feel that this sector of post-secondary, and also, let's say, the alternative education, it can be whatever you can imagine: language schools, free schools, vocational learning, training centers, seminary schools, all these people who provide this free type of education that it's not exactly university, it's not definitely school. They sell maybe to minors like children and to their parents basically, but also they sell services to adults. And they have this combination of complex environment where they need to attract students from one side to deliver high quality education with a lot of digital assets and a lot of digital tools, and at the same time to maintain operations, make money, survive in a very competitive environment. So our focus is mostly on the private education, post-secondary, I would say, colleges and university, but also any type of alternative type of educational institution that they don't find a ready-made solution easily. And otherwise, they need to do a lot of custom development.
Now, have you seen any maybe surprise use cases pop up, in the last decade? I'd love to just hear a story where your platform's really made a difference, whether if anything just comes to mind. I just want to kind of see if you can help kind of paint a clear picture of the real world impact.
There are a few cases that really we didn't expect initially to work with. I can give you some examples that a lot of institutions in Europe, especially higher education, what they have tried to do is to attract students from Asia and Africa, and that have created an environment with a lot of agents and a network of associates that basically enable those institutions to attract or to select students to bring to Europe. And so we have developed solutions for agent portal and managing, apprenticeships or traineeships, things like that. So managing the fulfillment of the program with real life work. I will say those two cases, the agent management, so agents who can log on, upload students, do payments for them and manage the whole process of bringing the student to the university in one side, and the other side, management of apprenticeship jobs and so on as a part of the studies, are two functional areas that we didn't expect at the beginning to work with. But it seems to be that a lot of customers have asked for this type of operations, and they keep asking, so we invest more and more time and effort on that. At the same time, from a customer type point of view, I will say that we have seen that COVID has changed a bit the way the corporate learning has been done. Traditionally, corporate learning was done either by training centers. So you go as an employee to a training center, you stay there for 2 weeks, you get some training, and then you go back to your position. Or you do self-paced training using learning management systems. So what we see now is that corporations, that they have replaced the first part, so the training centers with virtual training centers. So where we have seen Classter starting having a new market share is in corporations that they want to implement virtual training centers. So those will look like a normal school. So people, they have to enroll, they have to attend real-time courses. So they have to go to online meetings, do their homework, and finish 2 weeks training from home without working, but full-time 2 weeks training. If a company wants to implement that, there are not many solutions in the market that can offer the functionality we do. So this is another area that we didn't expect at the beginning, but it seems to be that a very new trend right now for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. You don't really hear about people or employees traveling to different training centers these days. It's all kind of done remotely, and
yeah, I think it's either blended learning, or if they want to do dedicated training, they do real-time training from home.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's interesting. Thanks for sharing that example, the different kind of segments, the agent management and kind of managing the apprenticeship and jobs. And yeah, thanks for breaking that down. I know, just generally speaking, switching to a new system, especially one that touches all the different aspects your platform does, from admissions to academics, it feels like, I can just imagine it's a big lift for schools. Obviously, it really needs to perform well, and the transition has to go as smoothly as possible. What are some of the common roadblocks institutions face when making that transition to a platform like yours?
Yeah, many institutions there underestimate the effort to do this successfully. I mean, it's one thing is to do it, and the other thing is to be real successful. For an institution to achieve the state of being fully well organized, fully digitalized, they need to invest both in systems like Classter, but also they need to invest in people. They need to have a strong internal team that can drive this project, because by the end of the day, those projects are process engineering projects. So they need to change to re-engineering processes, and that involves culture, that involves reaction from employees, especially in the educational institutions. You may see reaction from teachers or educators. So for that, a common problem is that they don't have enough resources to drive that change from their side, because it's not always easy. Of course, we have a system here that can start small and grow fast. So you can start with part of the solution by doing few things, and then you start expanding more and more. And for this to happen, you need to have resources, technical resources, budget, and you need to have also a very clear support from the top management. Sometimes what we see is that top management support is not always there, and it's not constantly there. We see people, they because they do their normal jobs at the same time usually, and they try to cope with a process engineering project at the same time. That can be tricky. So I believe this is the main barrier we see in large projects, especially not in small organizations so much. In small organizations, you may see lack of people doing the job. If one or two people are there and they are good, they can very fast implement it. In large organizations, though, you can see politics, you can see, people who don't want to change what they do on a daily basis. So you see some resistance to change. However, the technological change is so rapid, and the schools are forced, and universities are forced to do a lot of changes to survive and continue being relevant, that I think that the need for these changes is so demanding and so big and so large that all these problems they stay behind at the end of the day. The important thing is to be very clear mandate from the top management.
Okay, so that's the most important part. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of moving parts. I just know that from my schooling, my perspective in the last decade and a half of higher education and just all these different e-learning platforms, it's tough. It's a tough transition, and you definitely do hear about it from the teachers. The teachers kind of start venting to the students, groan about, any sort of issues they're having. And so it does trickle down, and it's important to have like you said, a good message from the top, good IT team, good support, and then to kind of maybe roll out in stages, right? That way it's you're not overwhelming anybody all at once.
Exactly. You can't do a big bang usually. You need to do agile approach again. I mean, you need to do something small and then start building up on the initial framework, and then you continue from that road down. But you need to have a constant flow, which is not usually the case, because people change, people change position or change companies, management change. It's not always the case. That is the one difficult part.
A lot of it too, I imagine, is, you've maybe from a student's perspective or a teacher's perspective, you know how a current system works, the layout. And so switching to a new platform can be a little bit daunting, and there's a learning curve, right? From an integration standpoint, like, what are you doing to work with other, systems that are already in place? How do you sort of play nice with them?
From the very beginning, you fully realize that the integration with other systems is a must for us. Any system like Classter that works basically as orchestration solution, it needs to be well integrated with multiple platforms. To have done integration with Office 365 for education, for Google Workspace and Classroom, with a lot of real-time communication solutions like Teams, Zoom, WebEx, with learning managers platforms like Blackboard, Canvas, Moodle, right space and so on, with accounting systems, CRM systems, you name it, payment gateways. So we've done a lot of integration out of the box, but also we provide a lot of tools for the end customer if they have the capability and the resources to use our APIs and use a number of other tools to integrate Classter with our existing platforms. We have integrated with systems like Joomla, like WordPress, WooCommerce. You can imagine the environment can get very complex. But basically, this is the reason that Classter exists, because you have complex environment with a lot of data here and there, and you want to consolidate. And that is the main reason that people come to us and ask, okay, how can we survive in this mess? What you can do for us? And what we can do is we can take a big percentage of all the different functions they do and operations and put them in one system with a unified interface. That is basically what you do. But we need integration with a lot of other systems to really do the end-to-end promise. And this is what we do.
Now, I know a big part of your business, kind of going back to the learning curve I mentioned earlier, I imagine a big part of your business is customer support and training to make adoption of your platform much easier. Can you talk about the kind of training and support you offer customers?
Yeah. First of all, you cannot just purchase Classter and start using. It is impossible almost, because it's so configurable, so rigid in terms of features and functionality that you get lost. You need to be very well trained in order to be able there and go and start using yourself. So what we do always is we sell Classter together with customer success services. We appoint the customer success managers who basically, this guy is the customer is inside Classter and Classter inside the customer. This is the job of this person. He has double hat. And this person has one single mandate to understand very well how the customer works, what are the requirements, what are the key elements of this implementation, what the customer expects, and help the customer to implement Classter the right way. They train the customer, they train the trainers usually, they work with the customer to do analysis and set up configure the system together. Of course, this person has on the back a full team. We have a full team that works with data migration and reports, because we understand that even with the best reporting system in the software, there is always need for customized bespoke reports and dashboards and analytics. So we have a full dedicated team that the only thing they do is reports for customers and data migration. And we have a dedicated support team after the project gets live to answer questions, to get new requests. And one of the things we do is we very much listen to new requests of the customers and try to put them in priority and see how we can extend the functionality to meet their more complex requirements they may have that otherwise they cannot be met out of the box usually. So, and that also is enabled by very flexible configuration with no code approach in the software. So they can easily go and do changes to the way the software works without the need to do any development.
Interesting. Okay. So you have a customer support manager that's really kind of the backbone of the relationship and helping the client get set up and going, everything going smoothly. And one thing I like that you just mentioned, the person. This is a real human being. This isn't an AI automated, chatbot or something.
Yeah, we definitely want to use, and we use AI for different operations. And you may end up talking to a bot at one point if you want, but at the end of the day, this is a very customer focused company, and we live there to serve our customers. We are not just a software company; we're a software and services company. What we need to do is we have the customer to understand how they can digitalize. The tool is like, I give you a Ferrari. If you don't know how to drive a Ferrari, you will crash in a second. So we are there to drive with you the Ferrari initially to learn, okay, this is how you drive a Ferrari. Now go ahead to the highway. Drive as fast as you can. But you have to learn it first.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Good kind of reassurance there too, to kind of always keep a human in the loop. And that way you don't feel like you're lost, right? Now, Nikolaos, I understand you have a background in IT and engineering, but I also know a big component, of course, of any business really is sales. You have to make your case for potential customers about why they should buy, what it is you're selling, and you have to kind of obviously believe in the product or the service. I'm curious, what has been one of the toughest calls you've had to make during a sale, and what did it teach you? Is there something you learned from it?
We started as a product-led company. Okay, the idea is to create a product We had a very heavy roadmap of things we wanted to do. And we wanted to create a product that basically can be used by large educational organizations. By the time we started getting large educational institutions, we realized that there are so many requirements and big pressure from those customers to fulfill those requirements. Even if the software is very flexible and very sophisticated in many terms, still there are things that we can't do out of the box. So I will say that one of the most difficult parts in our sales process is always to decide to what extent we can meet specific requirements that customers bring in front of us, and they consider those as very important elements for their decision making. So a lot of customers say, okay, we want to log cluster, but we want this and this also. You don't have that. We fully understand. We're willing to pay. Are you willing to do it? So many of our competition will say, this is what we do. We don't do anything beyond what we do, and that's it. Now, Classter being a company developed in a low-cost country like Greece, we had the benefit of having developers that were very good and not very expensive. So one of our competitive advantages was that we could think ourselves continuing to develop the software with in-house team quite fast. And the question is, where do you devote the time? And the balance between doing the product roadmap and doing also customer-related requests is always very tricky. We have basically many times decided to develop specific features because big customers ask for them and pay for them. But we never develop bespoke. So we never develop something only for one customer. Whatever we develop goes to the main product. It is always thought as a general solution to be used by everybody and as part of the total solution. So we try to make it very well integrated part of the total solution, not like, a custom solution for this customer, custom solution for that customer. And we never do this. That particular methodology has helped us a lot to develop a lot of features and modules very fast that are used directly by customers. And basically, the solution is proven in the real world. So we have real world problems and real world solutions with difficult customers using those features immediately. And that helped a lot the software to become a very, very sophisticated and very rich in functionality, very high quality processes implemented in the software, and allowing that other customers then start using those components very fast. So that particular element in our sales journey, I would say, is one of the most difficult day-to-day decisions we need to take. Can we do it? How fast? Do we want to do it? How can we do it for a customer so they are satisfied, but also we don't create complexity or noise, let's say, in our product? It's a very tricky process, but I think we are very good on that right now. We have done it so many times. We have improved a lot.
Yeah. Well, I would just say, with your background in IT and engineering, I would say, obviously you have a really solid understanding of all the features and how your platform functions. And I think you just sort of are able to build up the platform accordingly and let the platform sell itself, so to speak, So I think that's great. And do you have a specific example of when you or your team maybe went above and beyond for a customer, or maybe if there's a customer that, comes to mind in particular? You don't have to name names or anything, but just curious.
I will say that we have been in this position many times, because at the end of the day, a customer who is happy will give you more customers. We want 2 more new customers. A customer who is unhappy will probably be the reason that you lose 10 customers, or 10 prospects. So we try to keep the customer in our mind and be very, very responsive. I think that if I want to distinguish one particular case, I would say that it is not one case, but it's one period, is the COVID. During the pandemic period, we had so many schools and universities to do a lot of steps very fast, digitalize operations that they haven't done it for many years. Also, we had to do a lot of new integrations, even to change the software quite a lot. We also met a tremendous use of the software very, very suddenly. We found problems we didn't know that exist in the software, so we had to install all this very fast. So the team used to work 12 hours a day for a very big period of time. And we grew the team very fast also. So it was like a booming period. So I would say at that particular period, we didn't try to go and make as more money as possible. What we tried to do is to make as many happy customers as possible. And that was the origin of the a very rapid growth of Classter afterwards. Because after the pandemic, I think we had more or less all years after that, more than 50% growth year to year. And the main reason is that we build on this foundation, we build on happy customers and the focus to create something for the future and not just to exploit this particular case and take some money and disappear, but create something bigger here.
That's a good answer. It's a good answer. Yeah, I think COVID definitely jumped us all into the future a solid decade or more. Seems like I was a COVID student working remotely and taking classes remotely, and I can just kind of imagine all the kind of issues and all hands on deck here with your company, because this industry is just impacted more than any other, I would say. Now, looking back at the industry at large, especially with your decade plus of experience here, are there any big myths about the edtech industry that you're maybe tired of hearing?
I would say that the one thing that, let's say, misconception we encounter a lot, especially among large institutions, is that there is a belief that, okay, I have a learning management system and I have an ERP, I'm okay. And I will probably build on this ERP system or do a lot of customization, put a lot of services. And that is okay. And I don't need an SIS system, because what Classter is a student information management system. So I don't need an SIS. And I'm ready with that to start building and providing new tools and so on. The reason they think like this is they say, okay, I do have a very well-known ERP system, a big player or CRM. So I have built on that. It's very safe. And they have a lot of things ready. So I move towards this direction. The truth is, because these systems are not built for education, when they end up with a lot of custom code developed by either internally or by a subcontractor or a company that do whatever they do, but not education. And then they need to maintain all this. And they have a huge integration maintenance problems, a very, very, very high cost of ownership at the end of the day. So the misconception here is that we don't need specialized solutions to manage our operations. We need learning management solutions to manage learning, which is correct. And then we have accounting systems or ERPs on the other side, the same system that a manufacturer use, and we can survive with that. The truth is that education, it's a complex environment. Like an average school, it's like a small city. Imagine a school with 1,000 students, 2,000 parents, 500 teachers, and then all the candidates, they have a restaurant inside, they have a medical office, they have transportation needs, they have a library, they have so many different things they do, and they need to manage all this. So it's a very complex, it's like a small town in reality. So they need so many systems to manage all this. So they cannot survive with general systems and custom code. So this misconception that I can rely on a big software and a very well-known ERP, and then I will build on top of that, is one of the misconceptions that we find very often in the market. And a lot of people, they realize that they are wrong with a painful way. They invest a lot of money to produce, to implement solutions that usually fail because they're implemented by people who don't know education. It's very complex and a lot of customization is required and it's very, very expensive. And then they come back and they say, I need an SIS system. And then they go to solutions like Classter that provides you the ability to integrate all this and to manage all processes from start to the end and the full student life cycle from the very beginning, the registration until they get graduated. And this is basically what they need, but they don't realize it very, very often.
Yeah. It's don't get too fragmented with all these different specialized, systems. Look for an all-in-one solution. I like that. Well, if you had to sum up Classter's mission and product or service in a single thought, maybe a key takeaway, what would that one message be?
Yeah. Basically, what we do at Classter is we help educational institutions to fully digitalize. And by doing so, we create an open and connected school ecosystem that actively engages all stakeholders, students, teachers, educators, parents, administrative staff, external partners, aides and candidates, even graduates and alumni. And we achieve this by providing a set of tools that support the entire student life cycle from initial admission to graduation, as I said. So full life cycle. And we give the tools for the schools to solve all operational problems and focus on education. So I will say that that is the foundation that you need in order to do the next step. And the next step is to start investing in AI and personalized learning and change the way you deliver the learning and teaching. And to do so, you need to have an environment that it's stable and end-to-end provides the data and the tools required by an educational institution to exploit the new technologies like AI, for example.
Right. Well, fantastic. Yeah, I know it's hard to boil everything down into one sort of key message or takeaway, but I think you earned an A on that assignment. Nice job. Now, Nikolaos, where can listeners go to learn more about Classter and just get in touch with you and your team?
You can always go to classter.com, where you will find with A. Many people try to use you, where you can find a lot of information about our solution. There is a blog there with a lot of nice articles where you can read about how Classter helps educational institutions in general.
Perfect. All right, classter.com. It's a good starting point. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with us and share all that you have to share about the ed tech industry. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, that's Nikolaos Nikou, founder and CEO of Classter. Thank you all for listening to the SourceForge podcast. I'm your host, Bo Hamilton. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all of our upcoming B2B software related podcasts. I will talk to you in the next one.